big, Don Pryor, as you know, all the chatter these days is about AI. And it's a bit of a, I don't know, I'd call it a gold rush or a rush to judgment or a bubble or uh, maybe unrealistic expectations. Nevertheless, I think it's important to learn as much about AI as we can so that we know how to help our clients best, both in the IT space and the SEO space. What have you heard about or learned about lately in that field?
Well, maybe it's because I'm already thinking about it this way and I'm just reinforcing my own opinions. But I saw an interview yesterday with Linus Torvalds, who's the guy who invented Linux,
Mm-hmm.
in charge of the Linux kernel. And if you don't know what Linux is, if you got an Android phone, it's Linux running in the background. It's like hosting most of the web servers in the world. Um, and this guy invented it from scratch. And obviously, it's a big community project where thousands and thousands of people have contributed. But he's kind of the guy in charge. And somebody asked him, is AI going to replace programmers? And he basically said, no, it's a tool. It's a tool that's going to make bad programmers worse and good programmers better.
Nice.
And I think he also said it's kind of like autocorrect, right? Autocorrect tries it's a smarter version of autocorrect, where autocorrect tries to predict the next word you're going to type, and AI in terms of programming was going to try to predict the next thing you're trying to program. And it can certainly catch obvious errors that you could probably catch yourself. But he said he's never seen it catch anything, help him with anything subtle as of yet.
Really? Okay. But is he talking about, so this is something that always interests me, right? Is he talking about what it is now? Like we know that ChatGTP is just a really good autocomplete. But, what do we think about the future? Is it going to be writing great Linux or great code in 10 years?
Possibly.
Mm-hmm. And then is
I
it going
think
to take
that
over the
somebody's still
world?
going to have to be directing that show. I mean, there's going to, somebody has to decide what's important. And, a lot of the times there's choices that need to be made. Like, Tesla and their auto driving. And you're going down the road and the car's driving itself, and it's either going to hit like a nun and a bunch of orphans or a school bus or drive into the ditch.
Mm-hmm.
What's the right choice?
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that in smaller sandboxes, AI is pretty good because there's a limited number of choices, and with a fair amount of tuning, you can tell the AI what good outcomes are, right? The simple stuff. And so it seems to me that that part of the AI equation is getting a lot better. I call that stuff algorithmic AI in the sense that it's not generative, and it doesn't have to be sentient. Not that any AI is sentient yet, right? But it's just where you can figure out how to get AI to do tasks that are difficult or time consuming rapidly and reasonably well, in a limited playground. Certainly, I think a lot of that's going to come into play on the SEO side. We already can use it a little bit to create content, although again, you need a human to intervene. We might be able to use a little bit to do things like scheduling. We already use it in the background when we check keywords, right? We use Google Google Ads and their platform to find out what keywords are being most used and which ones we should use and what are the likelihood of success. And Google's got AI running in the background to help us with that. Those are all tasks that are fairly discrete. I mean, not that they're not complicated. Um, uh, so fascinating stuff. I mean, is it intrigue other than having computers that are capable of running AI? Is there anything else you're thinking about on the IT side?
On the IT side,
Yeah, on the IT side.
I mean, they're going to get smarter and more capable as the years come, and I think some people are very concerned about that. Who's pulling the strings and pointing them in what direction, and there should be some safeguards in place in case they decide it's time for Terminator 2.
Hmm. I mean, some folks are concerned about that, right? The Terminator 2 might come. I think before Terminator 2 comes, um, um, Bad Actor 2 is going to come, which is the like social influence campaigns and all that kind of stuff and hacker campaigns. To the extent they can multiply their efforts and make them more sophisticated with AI, I think they're going to do that.
or if not more, I mean, probably more sophisticated too, but just they're going to blitz us with all the negative stuff and arguing and get everybody to squabble. If somebody has to write all that now, and we're still seeing it, what happens when it's all automated and they just keep, hammering that stuff out?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with the guest on the podcast was somebody who wrote a book on cancel culture, and they were talking about the fact that, cancel culture is what it is, icky, but still out there, but that it's multiplied probably by bots or bad actors who put out massive stuff to try to increase the power of that. And I guess on the flip side, people that are in charge of platforms where a bunch of stuff gets talked about, all the obvious ones, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, we keep talking about free speech, but one wonders if there's a way to have AI do a better job of winnowing out what is a real human being response and what is a bad actor or a AI response.
For sure. Yeah, it's something that some people are deeply concerned with, like Elon Musk. He's deeply concerned with it, and that's why he had a feud with the guy that one of the founders of Google, um, who they said we need to put all these safeguards in place, and he's like, why? Well, what if AI wipes out the humans? And the Google guy's like, well, what are you, a speciesist?
Right.
Like Elon Musk is like, yeah, I am. If it's a choice between a computer and me, I choose me.
I agree with that. And I agree that if it's a choice between computers or AI in general and the human race, I don't think it has to be an either or equation. I think that they can support each other, but there has to be
Yes.
some rationality and some concern, right? We're here in the universe for a reason, and I think casually wiping us out or being a little too eager to automate everything is probably a mistake. Um, but you said something lovely a moment ago. Can you say that again about Linus Torvalds and good programmers and bad programmers?
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, I think he said it's a tool and like it's going to make bad bad programmers worse and good programmers better.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And to the extent where I think personally, I could be wrong about this, but I think that what I just called algorithmic AI is kind of better and more useful right now in one sense because you can have a set of parameters and it'll work. So if you have a Apple Watch and it monitors your pulse and says, oh, you should stand up for 45 minutes, after every 45 minutes and stretch or whatever. I think we're pretty close to having that be really almost revolutionary in terms of your health. And so I was just thinking about what are some other things that AI and the tools associated with AI could help us with. So health is one, work habits. So we talk a lot about work specifically, like how can AI help us write content for SEO or how can it help us build a strategic SEO plan? But it also goes to work habits. It also goes to health habits. What are some other things that the sort of algorithmic or simple AI tools could help with?
Well, I think the vision would be that there's a lot of drudge work that needs to happen in many jobs and factories, and if the AI and the robots can take care of that, and then the people can do sit on top of that and do the thinking and the masterminding and the engineering, and I think taking drudge work out of things
Mm-hmm.
is very possible. But then you get worried. It's like all these big companies with the phone tree, like you're calling into Blue Cross or something like that, and you get stuck in this stupid phone tree and you're yelling into the phone, representative. It's like, so
Yeah,
clearly it needs to get better.
it does need to get better. That's funny you say that because just the other day I went to a restaurant, which is part of a national chain. I hadn't been to that one in this town before, and I hit a pretty sophisticated AI phone receptionist and went through about five levels before I did what you just did. I said, I would like to talk to a human. And it was smart enough to know what I meant. So that was cool. But the AI is okay, but you're never fooled. You know what I mean? Like you're never fooled that that's a chatbot. It's a chatbot right from the first three words out of its speaker.
I feel it like every time I get tricked into, you go to some website and you can either call the company for support and get stuck in their phone tree, or they have like a chat. Well, I'll do the
Mhm.
chat and get the instant results. And I just feel that suck 7 years out of my life and I get no results every time I enter into that stupid chat.
Mm-hmm. And so that's going to be one of the big challenges for service providers, isn't it? I think you and I may have discussed this a little bit, but as AI gets better and better, and the impulse is going to be to farm more and more stuff out to AI and automate it, you're going to have a higher and higher risk of a lack of real presence, care, and compassion, right? Whether that be in writing, whether that be in conversation, that way strategic thought, right? Follow-ups. And they say there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile, but the extra mile is going to consist of real humans at least guiding the process.
Yeah, and that's going to separate a lot of businesses. I think that if you can serve with presence, care, and compassion and personalized service versus everything's automated and nobody cares and the results are all scripted ahead of time, then I'd rather deal with the presence, care, and compassion and personalized service for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent you can get rid. Well, so what's the dream, right? Get rid of some of the drudge work. If you got to do something 20 times while you sit there, how about have a computer do it if it does it well? But also, like in the health realm, I don't know if it's out there, but I wouldn't mind an app that makes me just a little bit more effective in terms of health things like when do I eat? What should I eat? When do I exercise? How do I exercise? A little key, hey, time to get off the phone so you have an hour to unwind before you try to go to sleep because the last 35 days we've measured you. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're getting close to that so I could be healthier. My work habits, it could say, when you work an hour and a half without taking a break, your next hour isn't as productive. So a more effective, healthier, happier lifestyle, more remunerative so that you can have more opportunities. That's a vision, and I don't think we're far from that if we take the time to learn those apps and to put them into play.
I wonder if AI could cook a better steak or make a better margarita.
And that is about the best segue I've heard all day. Not yet, not yet, not yet, ChatGTP. Stay out of the way. Stay out of the steak and margarita business. All right. So speaking of which, I have a couple things to share on that front. What have you got in the realm of steak and margaritas?
Well, I was driving home from a dentist appointment the other day and wondering what we were going to do for dinner, and I came to the sad realization that all I had in my freezer was $6 steaks.
Oh, $6 steaks,
And I'm sure
which you've made work in the past, sir.
and I was thinking, do I just want to go right home and make my $6 steaks and it'll be fine? It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I swing by Plum Market and see if they have any Snake River Farms Wagyu steaks?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did.
Smart
And
man.
they did.
Mm-hmm.
I asked for ribeyes and they said, we don't have ribeyes, but they had New York strips. So I bought a couple, stuck one in the freezer, reverse seared, salt, pepper, garlic powder, torched it with my blowtorch at the end, and put a little truffle salt and garlic herb butter. And I must have been Mr. Cranky Pants. I was ready to give it like a 9.0 or an 8.9 on the scale. But I got to tell you, the next day when I had the leftovers for lunch, I was quite satisfied.
How did you eat said leftovers for lunch?
Well, my wife, my lovely wife, insisted that I make fried rice to go along with the steak.
As one does.
And it was in the refrigerator. And she said, hungry, warm it up. So we warmed up. I stuck it in the microwave and we ate fried rice and steak for the next day.
Sounds amazing. Isn't it true too, right? That a lot of times you make a really good steak and you save half of it. Something about it sitting overnight and it doesn't hurt at all.
No, sir.
So on a slightly
And that
different-
also,
yes, sir. Go
I
ahead.
will point out that that takes a $60 steak, which listen, I'm not doing that all the time. I got $6 steaks and
Right.
but now it's a $30 steak, $15 a piece, right? So we had an expensive lunch, $15. You could go to Chipotle and order a burrito and get the guacamole. It'd be more than $15, right?
No, I'm 100%. I do that all the time because I have such guilt about spending these ungodly amounts of money on steaks. And then I look, because you got two people in your household, I got three, and if I buy a $125 steak, but I effectively get 10 meals out of it, it's it's not I was going to say it's not McDonald's, but McDonald's costs more than that now, right? It's not peanut butter and jelly, but 10, $12 a meal, a healthy meal, right? A really robust steak. That's not crazy.
Yeah, splurge a little, get it up to $15 a meal.
And if it's a bone-in ribeye or a tomahawk, my dog gets to chew on that bone for a week. So everybody benefits. So on a completely different steak note, I mentioned this to you, but I feel like the world needs to know this. Um, I don't know how this happened. I can't remember, but somehow I ended up with a package of three different types of beef in my freezer from Kansas City Steaks, not our usual Snake River Farms. And I feel like I might have ordered it in a fit of pique, like mad at Snake River Farms, but I also feel like someone could have bought it for me. I just don't know. Anyway, I was feverishly digging around in the freezer the other day and I saw these things and I looked at them and they were like, Wagyu, who even knew that? So I pulled two of them out. One was a roast of some kind, and and I think it was a piece of Wagyu chuck roast, honestly. But the other one was a flat iron steak, and that's a kind of a unique cut, similar to flank steak, but the texture of the meat's quite different. And I haven't cooked a flat iron in memory. Maybe I have. So I went to the internet and I looked at all sources how to cook a flat iron steak and learned a little bit about how it's cut, etc. And what I ended up doing was I just covered it lavishly in fajita seasoning, which I had just an off-the-shelf version of that. Let it sit for at room temperature for an hour or so just to really absorb those flavors. And then I put about 5, 6 inches below the broiler for which I preheated to around 500 degrees and for about 6 minutes aside. Stuck the meat thermometer in there and saw it was around 125. Took that sucker out, let it sit for about 8 minutes, and sliced that thin. And oh my God, when the SAS, the steak assessment scale fails you, you're left to resort with only one expression, and that is, I'm not sure I know how it could have been any better. It was spicy and it was tender, for a lean cut like that, cut cross grain, just absolutely delightful. The three of us just smashed half of that steak along with a bunch of other things in a matter of minutes. And then to be conservative and friendly, I put the other half in the refrigerator. And the next day when I got home for lunch, it was completely gone. So, and there's a 15-year-old in my house that had a full belly and a big smile on her face. So obviously that was a big hit.
I was going to say, yeah, those savages in your house probably demolished it while you were away.
It's funny. Once in a while, I'll come home and I'll see one of my steaks, half a steak still sitting in there, and I'll ask, like, what happened? How come nobody ate this? And they're like, oh, we thought we made that for yourself. And I'm like, well, that's really nice. I'm about to finish this thing off, but you guys got to remember the rule, man. If there's leftover steak in the fridge, first come, first serve. So I'm actually kind of gratified, right? When somebody in the family just goes, holy shit, that was good. I'm going to smash that, and forces me to start cooking again, which I really don't mind. So was that the most recent one, the New York strips from Plum Market?
I believe that it was, yes.
Well, as I mentioned to you, I know we like to dwell on our successes, but I don't fail, I learn. And we had this conversation. That Wagyu roast of whatever nature it was that I had from Kansas City Steaks, I'm sure it was a perfectly fine piece of meat. It wasn't a ribeye roast, but it was a perfectly fine piece of meat. It was Wagyu, about 2.1 pounds. And I tried the 5x5 method where you put it in the oven for 500 degrees, 5 minutes per pound. And for a big 6-pound roast, I usually give an extra 15 minutes for the roast. Just add that onto the numbers. So to 25 minutes, and then you just turn the oven off and let it sit for an hour. And sadly, it was about medium well, which I think I know, maybe medium in the middle, but by and large, medium well. And so the flavor was wonderful. But you know what happens with roasts like that? You get them cooked a little too much and they're just not that tender. So we tried slicing it thin, we tried chunking it out, and it was tolerable, but overall, I'd have to say I put it in the fail column for two reasons. I think I need to be more careful about what cut I get because that one probably wasn't amazing at any time. And two, got to be super careful and use the meat thermometer, the meter, as you are wont to do, instead of just blindly trusting the 5x5 method.
My next experiment
Yes.
is going to be to take a tri-tip
Hmm.
and cook it like a brisket.
Oh.
So instead of cooking it to medium rare, you keep it in the smoker for like 12 hours or something like that, then pull it out and let it sit and rest. And
Hmm.
the crazies on YouTube have done that, and they claim it is delightful.
Well, I've heard that. And are you gonna then do the thing where you like wrap it in foil and put it in a cooler or whatever, the other steps? I mean, there's some, usually those brisket guys are real deep into that magic stuff.
Yeah, I think they put it, yeah, wrap it in the butcher's paper, put it in the cooler, and let it sit for 12. I don't know. I probably don't have that much patience. I think the last time only time I made a brisket, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I found somebody on YouTube and I did it, 12 hours in the smoker, you take it out. Um, at some point you take it out and wrap it and stick it back in there and then let it sit overnight, then you reheat it the next day and it was delightful. So that's probably the route I'll go.
Man, I love the sound of that. If I'm feeling it, so I've tried brisket, never really had what I would call a success. I might have hit a 7 on the brisket scale. Um, but we don't have, Texas or North Carolina level brisket around here at the restaurants. We got a place called Ricewood, which is pretty good. They make these bowls with rice, and some of their spices are good. I like it. Um, and then we got a place called Satchel's Barbecue, which is a little more, down home barbecue stuff. And if I'm really in the mood, which I was a couple days ago, I just drive over to Satchel's and buy a couple pounds of brisket from them. And that usually doesn't go to waste in my house.
You should make a journey to West Texas barbecue.
Well, sir, I'm more than happy to make a journey to West Texas barbecue, but I feel that that's a journey best shared with other steak and margarita fanatics. So coming soon, probably in your next visit to these warm Michigan shores, we'll arrange that. See how they're holding
Outstanding.
up their end of the bargain, right?
Right.
I told you about I don't know if it was the last time I went, but maybe a couple times ago, I took my wife, my daughter, and one of my daughter's friends. They were both like 14 at the time. Did I tell you that?
No.
So the weather was shitty. They have picnic tables outside that place. So like if the weather's good, you sit out there at a picnic table and you drink your Diet Coke and eat your barbecue or whatever. But the weather was horrible. So we had just gone to the Jackson County Animal Shelter and donated like 60 blankets or something. And then since we're there, the two 14-year-old girls said, Dad, we got to go look at all the animals. And so we left there, all of us having tears pouring down our face because we wanted to adopt every cat and dog in the place. And we needed something to assuage our hurt feelings. So I proposed, hey, folks, we're all sad as hell right now. Let's go to West Texas Barbecue and redeem this experience. So we went over there and we ordered more food than any human being should consume in 1 or 2 sittings from West Texas Barbecue and took these giant greasy paper bags out to my truck. And we sat in my truck with the heater going on and our little puppy in the car. And the five of us, right, including the puppy, just destroyed the car. It got grease everywhere and smashed all the brisket and cornbread and everything else. And drove back to drive back to Ann Arbor with my belly getting in the way of the steering wheel. That was that was a really good experience.
Nice. Road trip.
Road trip. All right, sir. Well, we'll start looking at the calendar, and if and when we get you back to the west side of Ann Arbor after your next trip, we'll get you out to West Texas Barbecue for a commemorative trip.
I like it.
Rock and roll. All right, sir. Great conversation.
Yes, sir.